Alright, my number 10 for 2000 is another film that was nominated for Best Picture, and there was a lot of buzz around it thinking that it was going to be the one to win. My number 10 is Traffic. Now Traffic deals in a lot of the drug trade, and you get all these stories from different points of this sort of crazy drug trade, and you get the cop's perspective, you get the drug dealer's perspective, you get this politician's perspective, you get this teenager of this politician, you get all these people's perspective and how it all affects this sort of drug trafficking and all this craziness. It is a finely made film, well acted. I think the only thing that keeps it being a 4.5 star for me is that one of the storylines wasn't all that interesting to me, and that is the politician's daughter. I didn't really like her storyline that much. I felt some of her storyline really boring. Everything else, every other story in the Traffic was phenomenal for me. Okay, my number 9 is a lesser known movie. I think the only nomination, it got a few nominations I think, one of them being Best Actor, which he totally deserved Best Actor. I'm sorry Russell Crowe, Jeffrey Rush should have won. Number 9 is Quills. Quills is one of those movies that I had never heard about, saw it was in the top 100 of Rotten Tomatoes, watched the trailer, thought, holy crap, this looks good. It's a period piece, but it is the most dirty, perverted, raunchy period piece you will ever see. But it is rightfully so. Jeffrey Rush plays this author that writes dirty poems. He makes these dirty, blasphemous and really perverted, like pornos basically. And I mean, it's a period piece, so it's during the it might be a little after the Renaissance. I know I think it's in France. I forget the actual time period, but it is like 1800s or something. It's like you wouldn't even think. It's one of those. It's like he's one of those authors that was way before his time, because some of the things that he writes probably would be accepted in modern times for sure. But during this time period, he was sent into an asylum, and this is where the movie takes place, with him in an asylum. Kate Winslet's in it. She's really amazing. Jeffrey Rush is great in it. It is... oh, Michael Caine is in it. There's a lot of things really going for Quills. It's not for everyone. It is very dirty, very perverted, so much so, but it makes it so unique, and it is perfect for what story it's trying to tell. It's very dramatic. You really you despise and love this character as he's trying to rebel and send out his poems, even though he's in an asylum. And it is a completely interesting film. Quills, check it out. Number 8 is a buddy action comedy set in the West. Jackie Chan's in it, and Owen Wilson. I think you all know what it is. Shanghai Noon. Loved it as a kid, still love it. A lot of the jokes, still very clever now that I'm older and actually know some of this stuff. I watched back and I thought, no wonder this actually has a pretty high score on Rotten Tomatoes. It is actually more clever than I thought it was when I was a kid. And it still holds off as a Western. It holds off as a good Chinese adventure film. Everything works and it blends completely well together. Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan have great chemistry. They're funny together. They're really good together. Shanghai Noon, one of my favorite Jackie Chan movies of all time. Alright, my number 7 is the movie that won Best Picture of 2000. My number 7 is Gladiator. And quite honestly, I am glad that it won Best Picture, because out of the ones that were nominated for Best Picture, Gladiator is my favorite of those nominations. So I am glad it won. It's a very classic Roman story, very classic revenge, everything you would expect and want from a movie called Gladiator, and it is great. Alright, my number 6 is my favorite comedy of 2000, and it's a Ben Stiller movie with Robert De Niro. I think you've guessed it, Meet the Parents. Classic, funny, hilarious, just Everything about it is just amazing to me, and it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. Alright, with number 5, we're getting back into the really heavy, very depressing stuff. It is Requiem of a Dream. It's yet another movie on this countdown that is about 4 different people and their stories, and it's all about addiction. And at first I was watching this movie, I was thinking, what's so special about it? The first third of it, everyone is just so happy. Everyone is addicted to something. They're happy. It's a little cheesy. It's a little almost creepy. But then the movie continues and you start seeing all the harmful causes addiction can have on people, and it just becomes more depressing, more disturbing, just more plain hard to watch as the movie goes on, and you just feel awful for these characters and you just wish they could do better. You wish they could stop, but they just can't. And I was disturbed, I was disgusted, I was depressed, I was crying during certain moments towards the end of this film, and I really feel for these characters. It is so tragic. My number 4 is Titan AE. It's a sci-fi action adventure. A lot of really great voice acting in it. There's a lot of actors in it that I'm surprised is in this movie. Matt Damon's in it. Bill Paxton is in it. There's like so many freaking people in this movie. I was surprised. Now, this is the same year that Heavy Metal 2000 came out, and it was a disappointment to many, many people. Titan AE is like the Heavy Metal, the PG-13 version of heavy metal we did not get. This in my mind, this was more successful of an action sci-fi animated movie than Heavy Metal was for Heavy Metal 2000. Titan AE has a great soundtrack for me. It has a lot of early 2000 alternative rock and punk rock in it. And it's a lot of stuff I grew up listening to. Like I said, I was probably just in the right age for Titan AE when I first saw it. But for me, it still holds up. Maybe it's nostalgia, but this is far better than Heavy Metal 2000. Now, number 3 is a movie that you're going to either love or you hate. It's a war movie. It's during the Civil War, and it stars Mel Gibson. It is The Patriot. Now, I can understand some people's complaints for this movie. Some people felt it was too stereotypical to Civil War movies. It was a little too patriotic, which is kind of stupid to think because it's called The Frickin' Patriot. But I enjoyed the villain in this movie. He was very despicable. I enjoyed the action sequences in it. I really did enjoy this movie, and it never got too over the top, too patriotic for me. And The Patriot is my number 3. Alright, my number 2 is one of the few sports movies that actually gets a 5-star for me. I'm not a big fan of sports movies. I can enjoy sports movies, but never to the extent that I love this one. Number 2 is Remember the Titans. Now, some people love this movie out of nostalgic reasons, but for me, it's not that, because I had never seen it when it came out. This is one of those movies that I missed, and I watched recently for the first time to make a list and to place it in a list of best of 2000. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed it, and I love the whole subplot, or actually the main plot, where it's about segregation and people finally having to be in the same schools, and all the tension that happened between whites and blacks during that time, and this football team that was formed when there was no longer segregation. And I really enjoyed it. Denzel Washington was phenomenal in it. Everyone is great. Like freaking Ryan Gosling is like a teenager in this movie, and I was like, oh my god, it is. Remember the Titans. It's a really good movie. It's got a great message. It deals with a certain time in our history where it was absolutely crazy. Remember the Titans. Excellent film. My number 1 film of 2000 is the first Christopher Nolan movie, I believe. Memento. This is a very unique crime thriller not just because of the structure, but just because of the story alone. Crazy twist at the end that you finally figure out, and it's just mind-boggling. It is an amazing film. I don't want to say too much in case you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen the movie, just be prepared to pay attention. Pay attention to every little detail. You might have to watch it 2 or 3 times because it is a very unique backward structure that really works for the film. That's the end of my top 50 movies of 2000. Please stay tuned when I make my top 20 worst films of 2000, and by God, there are plenty. But as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.